Okay, so let's begin with our first big story. Now, every year, the United Nations has set aside July the 11th to mark World Population Day, with the aim to raise awareness on issues such as the importance of family planning, gender equality or gender parity, poverty, maternal health, and human rights.
On this day, the world will focus attention on the urgency and importance of population issues. This year's theme is investing in teenage girls, but a group in Nigeria's Federal Capital Territory, Media Information and Narrative Development, is emphasizing on the need for strengthening public service delivery to the fast-growing settlements of the urban poor in and around Nigeria's capital city of Abuja. They are focusing on waste management and Abuja's growing population.
In many satellite towns in the FCT, public waste management efforts are inadequate to process the amount of waste produced by the fast-growing population. Given the absence of public waste containers and formal dumps, residents are dumping their rubbish in the bush or in informal dumps that are scattered across town. Waste is piling up in many places. Toxic substances from trash like batteries, drugs, and harmful plastics are either leaking into the ground and surface water or polluting the air when residents burn the waste that is not publicly collected. Waste is clogging the makeshift gutters in many places, causing excessive floods during the rainy season.
If land fall for this place, you cannot pass, you cannot do anything. Now, so even inside my room, water they enter. Every dustbin will come and gather for my front. Shit, if you see these all houses where they channel their toilets for this quarter, so everything is coming. You cannot stay if the rain will come there. So every place they smell, you cannot stay. So that's why for here I don't like that thing.
Health experts are warning that the many pools and floods in the rainy season are absorbing environmentally harmful substances from the waste, which in turn is contaminating the surface water, groundwater, and soil. The pollution is worsened by inadequate public sanitation. Only a small fraction of residents have toilets at home.
This is the house of rat. That dustbin is the house of rat for them. Is there enough? They walk up and down, they stay one place. And they enter my house. A mosquito. It's a very mosquito is there too much for this place because of the dustbin.
For how much longer can we afford to ignore the sanitation and waste management needs of urban poor residents in Abuja's fast-growing satellite towns? Its population is estimated to rise from 5 million in 2013 to 10 million in 2018.
Right, we're joined now by Dr. AMAKA Haruna, the National Program Officer, Adolescent Sexual Reproductive Health at the UNFPA. We're also joined by the Project Director of the Media Information and Narrative Development, Ilse van Lameon. She joins us from our Abuja studio. Good morning and thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Great. And of course, it's good to have you, Dr. AMAKA Haruna. We also joined via Skype by National Coordinator Shacks and Slum Dwellers Association of Nigeria. Good morning to you and thanks to all of you for joining us on the show this morning. Okay, so let's begin with this very interesting theme for this year. Investing in teenage girls. Now, the UNFPA that you work with in 2015 said it has helped some 11.2 million girls between the age of 10 and 19 gain access to sexual and reproductive health services. I'm just wondering, how does the Nigerian teenage girl factor in this program? I mean, this is quite impressive, but how has it dropped off on the Nigerian teenage girl?
Yeah, a significant number of those girls, because by virtue of the Nigerian population, a significant number of those girls are Nigerian. I can't give you the figures now off the figure of my head, but I would say roughly up to nearly half of those figures have been the Nigerian girl child age, significantly. I think in relation to worldwide world population and teenage girl, it's because it has a lot to do with the fertility rates we have in our country, which are really high. Significant population of that fertility rate is amongst young girls. And the relevance of providing these young girls with sexual reproductive health information and their services is so that these girls can have a whole lot more information about their fertility, about their reproductive health. You know, by virtue of being African, we don't talk a lot about things like that. And what you have is girls getting married young, first of all. And when they get married young, they have a lot of children, you know, which puts a lot of health impacts on the mother and the child, you know. And at the end of the day, you have an increasing population rate, which doesn't really all go well generally for the country as a whole. So that's the summary of that.
Okay, all right. If you narrow down the theme, basically it has to do with their reproductive right,
Yes.
their reproductive health. Basically, tell us what your programs are to educate the average Nigerian girl on what their rights are.
What their rights are. Because of Nigerians' heterogeneity, it's very different depending on the region you're from. So first of all, in the South, I would first of all say in the North, we focus a lot on two things. We would say girl education and we like to say eradicating child marriage. So things like that. We feel by doing those two things, because of the indices in the North in terms of education and child marriage is quite high, girl child education is quite low. We do a lot of programs that support. First of all, our target is using education to reduce child marriage. So a lot of programs around supporting families to understand the benefits of girl child education, you know, through community leaders, through traditional leaders. And what you find is that when the communities understand the benefit of education, it delays the girl from getting married. So you don't necessarily go out guns blazing and say, don't get your child married, because it's a traditional thing. But you find out that the more you make education...
So you engage the stakeholders, the parents, the communities more than the girls?
Yes, at the highest level. In Nigeria, especially, the EMIA is a strong advocate for UNFPA.
Indeed, he's been speaking out.
He's speaking of UNFPA, especially lately. For that. So when you promote girl education and the parents can see the benefits, then they don't marry their girls off at 14, 13 anymore. They wait for them to be older, for them to finish school. And by the time the girl is older, she finishes school early enough, she's more aware of her sexual reproductive health in terms of knowing that I should have less children, I should plan my children better so that my health can be sustained, so that my children's health can be sustained. You know, so those are programs we're working with over the years for the northern region, and they've been quite successful. And we have different project initiatives, but in the summary, that's what it is. Okay. But Nigeria is quite different. In the South, we focus a lot around preventing teenage pregnancy, because teenage pregnancy rate in Nigeria is very high. Okay. I won't go into too much detail of it, but it's especially very high. And then we focus a lot around, even in schools, the issue is to introduce it in schools first of all, so that people see it as normal and not something extraordinary. And then from schools, the children learn comprehensive sexuality education, which is something UNFPA has. All right,
we'll of course you know, get even deeper into how successful or otherwise your work has been so far. But let's go to Ilse. Good morning to you once again. Well, I believe you're working on population expansion generally, especially as it affects Abuja. Talk to us about your findings so far and how you have been able to intervene in especially educating people, or even reducing the number of, you know, influx of people to a place like Abuja that is supposed to be, you know, Nigeria's pristine city.
Thank you very much. Okay, you can hear me, right?
Absolutely, go ahead.
Okay, so basically my organization is called MIND, Media Information Narrative Development. And we're currently running a project in the FCT in Abuja that focuses on gender and urban poverty. Oh. And one of the major findings that we found in this project is that the population in the FCT, so not just generally across Nigeria, like the lady was just describing, because of reproductive health issues, etc. But my organization is looking more specifically at, urbanization into the FCT and Abuja and its surrounding satellite towns. And we found that the urban planning in the city is not managing to keep up with the huge influx of the population in the city, and it's leading to issues like you're seeing in the film that was just displayed, or for instance waste management. But waste management is just one of the examples of public services that are not managing to keep up. And we cannot claim as an organization that we have managed to reduce the population. It's not our main aim. But what we hope to achieve by producing movies like these is giving a voice to people in and around Abuja's in Abuja's satellite towns that are living these lives, that are basically coming into the city, cannot find homes, have to settle down in illegal structures, and they are basically deprived of any type of facilities. And we were thinking that the event of today, World Population Day, was an excellent opportunity to flag up some of these issues.
So what are some of the programs you have lined up, to engage the people there, especially in the FCT?
Mm-hmm. What we're trying to do, we're really a media-based organization. So what we're trying to do is to strengthen voices of people that normally are not really heard in society. So we have asked people living in urban poor settlements across the FCT, what would help you to really enhance in life? And what would be, if you were to set your own priority, what would be the key issues that you were addressed? And the number 2 issues that came up in most communities were access to water, which we're going to see another movie about soon, and access to waste management. Now, we've been producing media outputs, including print, film, radio, etc., where we're trying to, raise attention to these issues, and through that, we're hoping to hold government accountable for providing these services. In the area of waste management, in one of our communities, Kuchingoro, until very recently, waste was not collected at all in any form of public effort. And right now, at least recently, government has responded to some of our requests from community members in Kuchingoro. And they have now put out some waste containers that are regularly emptied. So it's a major progress. In the same breath, we're still also working on additional measures, such as a major environmental sanitation of the community, because it's one thing to provide waste management facilities for the future, but the piles that the heaps of waste that you see in the community in the film, they are still there. So the work continues, but what we're trying to do very explicitly is also emphasize the responsibility of community members themselves. Because it's very easy to say, oh, government doesn't do this, government doesn't do that for us. But in dialogue with community members, we've also made them acknowledge that, yeah, it's also a matter of they themselves also changing their behavior, and instead of just dumping your rubbish on the streets, which has huge health implications, people now also starting to see that it's also their own responsibility to help keeping the community clean.
Okay,
and they're very keen.
Thank you. Okay, we'll get back to you. So let's bring Williams now into this discussion. The World Economic Forum that was held in Nigeria about 2-3 years ago, the major theme has to do with non-inclusive growth, and the UN and quite other development partners have been doing something about inclusive and non-inclusive growth, where you have the haves and the have-nots, which is what you're showcasing in your documentary there. What do you hope to do differently this time around? Williams.
Hello, yeah.
Yes, my question is, how do you hope to achieve all-inclusive growth? Because what you just showcased in your documentary there is you have slum shanties within the Federal Capital Territory, Federal Capital City, where you have the Asukoro and the Maitama, and you have very beautiful cities there. And just by those buildings, you have the shanties and the slum, just next door to those beautiful mansions. How do you intend to achieve inclusive growth, which has been the bane of the issue of slums in Nigeria, urban slums in Nigeria?
Yeah, thank you very much. If you, from the clip you saw there, that is a clip of Kuchungoro community, for example, which is less than 10 kilometers to the Abuja main city. While we expect that we should be able to ask the people for the people's voice to be heard, what we're doing with the MIND project is actually to ask these people to speak for themselves. Because when people speak, they speak realities on ground. They also speak on what they are going through. You know, it's always better somebody who has experienced a particular issue speaks for himself. So what MIND project is doing now through Shacks and Slum with these communities in FCT is actually bringing them out to speak for themselves. With the inclusiveness we expect is that when people speak, because these people are both indigenous people within the FCT here, both residential people, the government should be able to take them serious instead of somebody coming out and say, look, these people are suffering. The people are coming to show you, look, this is what we go through, just as you have seen in that clip there. And part of what we are doing today is also, as we mark this unique day, it is unique because it's happening all over the world. We also expect that the people, apart from the few communities we have been able to reach in FCT, other people within the other community too, because what we are putting out is a catalyst that will actually promote so many other things happening within these communities for them to start asking for their holding government.
Indeed. Okay, yes. Williams, let me ask you this. Of course, it's one thing, you know, for these people to actually find their own voice and speak out on the challenges that they have. In your work so far, what has been the major challenge? And can you, how do you explain the springing up of the slums, especially in a place like Abuja, which should have really been an example of the best, you know, that we can as Nigeria achieve when it comes to, building a city?
Yeah, well, you agree with me. Even in developed world, you also have issues of economic crisis within the rural areas, and then because the government have actually failed to give much attention to the rural areas, then which has actually resulted to a lot of migration. If you go to apart from Nigeria, for example, you see people moving from East Africa down to the Western world. Some of them may claim is other means of survival, but for us it's economic immigration. If you're the same thing also about down to FCT here, people see FCT as a major city where people come, get job, get means of access to livelihood. So many of them come into FCT. And looking at the issue of the Nigeria, the insurgency issue, you see a lot of people. For example, in Kuchungoro, they are opposite the major community we're working on. For example, that is where the IDP camp is. So when there is issues happening in the northeast part of the country, a lot of people are moving to other cities. I think the best place they feel they can actually come and have security and have peace of mind is Abuja. And I have also been advocating for the government to actually decentralize most of the offices we have. You see, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Education, all of them are just within this Garikitan where we have 6 area council. If some of these things are moving to Kuje, Wale, and the Abaji area council, there may not be as much pressure as you see within this thing. So migration is because of the people looking for a means of livelihood. And it will be a continual process if we don't actually put into, that is where planning comes in. We should be able to plan to cater for these people. We can't stop it. People, I'm only talking of the Northeast. People are also migrating from Lagos. People are migrating
from everywhere.
Abuja, Lagos. So there's a lot of migration coming in. What we need to do is to sit down and plan a possible way of making sure that as people migrate, they don't put pressure on the exhausted resources already, and the basic amenities that have been set up by government by this.
All right. Thank you so much, Nkwame Williams, Coordinator, Shacks and Slum Dwellers Association of Nigeria. Thank you so much for your time this morning on TVC Breakfast. Okay, let's come back to the studio to you, Dr. AMAKA Haruna. You are working with teenage girls and, of course, reproductive health and all of that. Ban Ki-moon, the UN Secretary General, did say that if the 2030 SDGs are to succeed, then we really must, place a lot of emphasis on gender parity, gender empowerment of girls and all of that. Do you see us, going far in this area with what you see on ground already?
In Nigeria? Nigeria still has a bit of ways to go. I think, as I said, Nigeria is very heterogeneous, so depending on the area, the region you are in, some regions have gone a lot further than other regions. But because of our core cultural biases that we have to really overcome, even in areas like, for instance, I love Lagos. I'm a Lagosian by adoption.
Don't we all?
Yeah, exactly. But still there, you still find in some areas a lot of disadvantage, unfortunately, for girls as compared to boys in terms of access to education, which you would think in a cosmopolitan city like Lagos, which I don't have any study, but I'm sure it's probably the most gender proactive state in the country. So you can see, you have stories of, we have a program in Lagos called Hello Lagos, which is a Lagos State initiative where we have centers for young people to access information of their sexual and reproductive health and other things. And you have girls that come in there to talk about how they cannot go to school. Their parents have given their brother's body, but they have not been able to access education, access school fees to go to school. So they try to work with the Ministry of Women Affairs to provide support to such girls and things like that. And that's in Lagos. So as a whole, Nigeria has a bit of ways to go, but we can only do, and particularly, I would say the first ladies, the wives of the governors in different states have different initiatives which UNFPA tries to support, because we also have very strong cultural taboos like female genital mutilation,
which is still very prevalent,
pertinent in a lot of our states, still practiced even in well-educated families, and all those things can never create real gender parity, gender equality in the long term. So we have a little ways to go, but we are definitely better than a lot of other areas.
All right.
That is.
Okay, we'll continue this discussion right now, but we are going out on TVC Entertainment. Our viewers there can continue with TVC Breakfast on TVC Nigeria and Concert Channel 190, DSTV 418.
You can also find us on GoTV 45 and, of course, ACTV 510. We'll be right back right after this. Stay with us.
Right, you're still on to TVC Breakfast, and the discussion first this morning has to do with the world population. It's World Population Day, and we have Dr. AMAKA Haruna here with us in the studio. Ilse Lameon is our guest in Abuja, talking about the overpopulation that's prowling out of control in Abuja City, and of course the shanties and slums and going on there. So Ilse, let's have your thoughts on the issue of Abuja Master Plan, because over and over again, when you talk about planning in Abuja and issue of expansion and development, they always flung that in your case, in your face, the issue of Abuja Master Plan. Has that in any way hindered your work and what you foresee as a problem in that area?
The master plan has been very much biased to maybe the more rich and wealthy part of the population. And the big problem that we're seeing now is that actually the majority of the population right now in Abuja and its surrounding satellite towns, they are not the rich and the wealthy. The majority of the people are actually, people that are struggling to make a living here and there. And for them, Abuja is not offering adequate places to live, adequate infrastructures for water, for waste management, for health, education, etc. And we're feeling that even recently, actually the FCT minister himself probably acknowledged that Abuja is about 6 times overpopulated, by which he meant that the city was designed for only 1 million residents, while today the city counts about 6 million residents. And it doesn't take much to understand that infrastructures, etc., are hugely under pressure by this overpopulation. So we feel that it's really, really urgent. There's an urgent need to address those issues, because if we don't, numerous children, as you see in these films, are growing up without basic access to facilities. They are seeing their parents struggle, and it might ultimately lead to social tensions unless we really start to address these issues.
All right, ladies, just hold on as we give some background information to our viewers on the World Population Day as it relates to the theme for this year. And so we ask, why is it necessary really to conduct a population census? Of course, Nigeria has actually carried out quite a number, in the last a number of decades. Now, the aim of conducting any population census is to obtain up-to-date benchmark information on the socio-economic characteristics of a country's population.
The top 5 countries in the world, according to their population size: China, India, USA, Indonesia, and Brazil.
Nigeria is ranked the 7th country in the world and 1st in Africa with the largest population. Presently, Nigeria is estimated to have more than 180 million people. At the last count, that's during the 2006 population census, Nigeria was said to have a population of 140
Nigeria
million.
is actually built to have another census this year, and we are getting information that there's probably no money from the international donor. Is that true?
Well, I can't exactly comment on that. I guess discussions are in line to make sure that the census is really reflective of the real population in Nigeria.
So you're saying that 2006 is not a true reflection of what we have?
I'm not saying it wasn't, but I think before you start everything, we've just come through a transition process more or less. So you don't want to start something, will I say, rushed. So it has to be really well planned. And also with the IDPs, there's a lot of inter-migration, intra-migration. So all those things have to be really well planned. So I believe donor organizations want to make sure the stage is really well set before you begin doing any census, and it should be done well. I think that would be the summary of what is being done now.
All right, so coming to the African continent, these are the top 5 countries in terms of population size. In Africa, Nigeria, Ethiopia, Egypt, Tanzania, South Africa are the most populated countries, and the source, of course, is the United Nations.
So based on the median projection of the UN, the number of people in the world will reach 8 billion by 2025, 9 billion by 2043, and 10 billion by 2083.
And speaking of Nigeria, there are projections that by 2050, Nigeria may just be somewhere around 400 million. And the question is, how ready really is Nigeria for this population explosion? Let me ask this question to Ilse. You've been, engaging with governments at both federal and state levels, I want to believe, and you did talk about some progress that's been made. But in what areas would you like to see, very quick progress, being made right now, especially with this projection of about 400 million by 2050?
I think the main progress... Sorry, I interrupted you, I guess. I think the main progress that we hope to see is really, it's mostly a matter of scale. I think it simply is not enough to just provide a waste container here or one waste container there. I think the main issue is really the sheer mass of people. And so even though we're happy with the small progress that was made so far, some new containers installed in Kujigora, etc., there still are millions of people in different satellite towns, not just in our own project communities, but in a whole range of satellite towns across Abuja that lack these facilities. And what we would love to see is also it's a two-way street. It is people also demanding more for their own human rights, and instead of them being told, you know, you're living in informal settlements, so you don't have any rights to claim anything. The big problem right now is that there are no or hardly any formal structures that are affordable for people to live, etc. So they are almost forced to live there. And what's happening, you know, as the urban development in Abuja is growing and growing, the urban poor population is being pushed further and further outside of town. They are often forced to move, their houses are demolished, they have to restart again in a new place. But often they cannot find any formal places where they can live.
Okay, just before we let you go quickly, let's talk about the issue of contraception with the Nigerian teenage girls. Where do you draw the line between morality and what is obtainable?
It's very, very dependent. We'll say the issue of contraception, I mean, once again, because of our cultural context, really has a lot to do with weighing the benefits and the cons of using it, you know. And as you said, moral standing, it's not always, it might not be as well accepted, but from a health perspective, UNFPA, we're a very strongly health focused organization. We believe that it's important that the health of the person is preserved. It's a personal choice. It's more of telling you the options you have. We promote abstinence in knowing that, you know, it's better and all that, but also knowing that it's, instead of a girl having to go and have an unsafe abortion or getting pregnant at the age of 14, it's always good to lay all the options on the table and present especially to the parents of the child, and inform the parents and inform the child of the options available to the girl and allow them to make their choice. So we'd say that's our stance.
That's it's very good to know. Well, I want to say thank you so much, Dr. AMAKA Haruna, adolescent health and HIV prevention specialist for UNFPA, but of course, unfortunately, we didn't have enough time to even talk on HIV, AIDS, and the teenage girl. But maybe we can do that some other time. And of course, Ilse van Lameon, thank you so much for your time on the show this morning.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much for having us.